All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to today's panel discussion on how outdated compliance practices can now be replaced with a streamlined workflow that elevates auditing to a timely, efficient process. Thank you all for joining. I'm Candace Smith. I'm the Events Marketing Manager with BARR Advisory, and we are thrilled today to be joined by two subject matter experts in the cybersecurity space and their mutual customer. We'll have a conversation with Hygraph on why they chose to enlist the partnership between Drata's compliance automation platform and BARR's platform-fluent auditing team to streamline their SOC 2 exam. With a wealth of industry knowledge, they will provide some insight for us on this future-ready topic. So I will have the panelists introduce themselves in just a moment to get things started, but first, a few housekeeping items. So first of all, we will address any questions during an audience Q&A at the end of the webinar. So submit your questions through the chat or the Q&A section, and we will address them at the end. Also, a recording of the webinar will be provided after the event via email with a feedback survey, as we'd love to hear any feedback regarding your experience with us today. So without further ado, I will turn it over to our panelists for some introductions, and we'll get started with Dan Mathewson from BARR Advisory. Dan?
Yeah, good morning and or afternoon, depending on where everyone is joining. But my name is Dan Mathewson. As Candace said, I am an engagement manager here at BARR. And with that, I'll dish it over to Ashley.
Hi, everyone. Good to be with you today. My name is Ashley Hyman. I am the VP of Customer Success at Drata. Really what that means, I oversee our customer success team that's really tasked with supporting our customers to use Drata to arrive at their compliance goals.
Hi, from me, Alexander Naidenov here. I'm the head of sales of Hygraph. And from time to time, I have the pleasure to work with my team members on really sweet security forms coming from enterprise customers that won't let us take their business before we've committed to certain compliance and security rules. And I'm calling from Europe, from Bulgaria currently. So good evening from me.
Wonderful. Great. Well, thank you all for taking the time to have this important conversation with us today. Let's go ahead and get things kicked off. All right. So before diving into Hygraph's specific journey, first let's tee up that discussion with the background of BARR Advisory, Drata, their partnership, and the unified approach of compliance automation and the auditing process. So Dan, can you tell everyone a little bit about BARR Advisory?
Absolutely. Yeah, so BARR was founded nearly a decade ago with a mission of building trusts through cyber resilience. We help protect the world's data, people, and information networks through a human-first approach to cybersecurity and compliance. We are a cloud-based security and compliance solution provider specializing in cybersecurity consulting and compliance for companies with high-value information. And these could be in cloud environments like AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform. We are a trusted advisor to some of the fastest growing cloud-based organizations around the globe, and we simplify compliance in highly regulated industries, such as technology, financial services, healthcare, and government.
Awesome. Ashley, it's great having you here today as well. And can you give us a little bit of background on Drata?
Yeah, absolutely. So Drata is a security and compliance automation platform. Really, our goal is to continuously monitor and collect evidence for a company's security controls while really streamlining their compliance workflows, ensuring an end-to-end audit readiness. The goal with Drata is to ease this process for companies because it can be very tedious and have a lot of work behind the scenes. Like BARR, our mission is to really build trust across the internet. And we recognize the importance of earning and keeping trust of our customers because they're building trust with their customers. So it's a full circle of trust, if you will. Drata is very customer centric. Some even say customer obsessed. Really, we built our business on supporting customers and helping them reach their goals every step of the way during their compliance journey.
Wonderful. And now that we've covered what each of our organizations do individually, let's talk a little bit about the BARR Drata partnership. Dan, would you like to give us a little bit of a highlight of our relationship?
Yeah, so BARR and Drata's partnership provide SaaS companies kind of like a streamlined security audit support by automating the monitoring of controls and evidence collection activities. Through this partnership, we help take the complexity out of security and compliance so we can focus on building relationships to better understanding what our client truly needs. Together, we leverage efficiencies, strengthen security, and ultimately help our clients grow their business. And from a SaaS provider's perspective, they should be able to feel direct cost savings, time savings. It's relatively less painless from an audit perspective, and it provides ongoing security.
Awesome. So now let's jump into what is compliance automation exactly, and how does it come together with the auditing process? Ashley, would you like to start us off here?
Yeah, definitely. I think a good way to understand what Drata and tools like Drata do really is kind of the story of where Drata started from. And so our founders and many of us that started Drata actually had worked at a prior company called Portfolio. We were an ed tech startup. We went through several rounds of funding. We were eventually acquired. I remember all through those rounds of funding, getting acquired, our CTO staying up all night trying to gather all the data to show we were secure, to show we were doing things properly, and spreadsheets, screenshots, herding cats is what I like to call working with employees to get them to prove that they were doing what they were supposed to do on their computers. And I think that's when, I'll speak for Daniel a little bit, he had a light bulb moment, our CTO and one of the co-founders, to say, there has to be a way to make this easier, to really streamline the process so companies that are building their product can focus on building their product while in the background ensuring they're doing things the right way, because that is so important, that you don't want to just ignore it completely. But again, resources are often tight for younger companies in that way. And so that's where the idea for Drata came from, thinking of a way to really put this on autopilot in the background, do the work to set up configurations properly, and then continuously monitoring those controls. So what I mean by that is Drata is able to connect to many of the tools that you're using every day for developing your software, your infrastructure, identity provider, version control, ticketing, HRIS, etc. And then we run checks every single day against those systems to ensure there are no gaps in your configuration, and really alert you if there are any. And so rather than when you get to your audit, having an auditor say, hey, it looks like you haven't been doing daily database backups, making something up there as an example, you would actually know that in advance and be able to mitigate that so that when you do go through your audit, it's a much more streamlined process. Really hoping to kind of automate the path to compliance right up until the audit and give you more knowledge. Even if you're not working towards an audit, I've had customers say, this helps me sleep at night because I have visibility into our security posture. It's so easy when you're building a product to forget something, forget to set up that daily database backup on one database that you just spun up yesterday. And so it's giving folks that real-time visibility, the confidence that they're doing the right thing, and then at the same time getting them towards their audit. We were also built with the auditor in mind. We'd heard lots of feedback from auditors, just like the folks at BARR, that said, hey, these tools are great ideas, but we need to be able to use them, feel confidence in them. And so we have unique product features to streamline the audit process for both the customer and the auditor, because if your auditor doesn't have a good experience, you're probably not going to have a good experience as the client for them and customer for us. We have an auditor view specifically. We have the ability to give that auditor read-only access. And then we work directly with auditors to get feedback from them constantly. We want to hear what's working well, what was challenging, so we can continue to streamline that process again for both the customer and the auditor. Hopefully that provides some clarity.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ashley. Dan, would you like to provide it from the auditor's perspective?
Yeah, those were all great points, Ashley. And yeah, from I guess the auditor's perspective, compliance automation is pretty new, and it's really starting to gain traction. And I guess before I even speak to how automation compliance ties well into the auditing process, I think it probably makes sense to talk about maybe the traditional audit approach. So with that said, for those of you listening, you're probably an auditor and or maybe an auditee, and when you hear traditional auditing, you probably think back to the wonderful experiences you've had where an auditor gives you an Excel spreadsheet with a list of information requests, and then you manually go through and collect all of those documents, and then you manually upload those documents to provide them to the auditor, and then you manually update that spreadsheet to update the status of each information request. So as you can see, the traditional approach, it's quite manual. And that's really where the compliance automation comes into play with the auditing process. A big part of that manual aspect goes away. Not all of it, but a good part of it. And the biggest lift, the biggest time or resource suck in an audit is tracking down evidence. And compliance automation helps with that burden.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dan. So hopefully now everyone has a good understanding of the unified compliance automation and auditing approach, what BARR and Drata respectively do, as well as how they come together to elevate the process. So now let's bring in Alex to talk about Hygraph's security journey. Alex, would you like to first tell everyone a little bit about what Hygraph does?
Sure. Thank you, Candice. So we are a technology company, exactly one of those that monitored a lot by law and by their customers. In the end, we offer a latest wave of content management, federated content software. So huge companies like Samsung, like Shure, Philips, they would base their web products on Hygraph. So we would manage data and content for them. We are a bit behind the curtain as a sort of a backhand, but for good or bad, the responsibility we bear in front of them means that exactly security compliance will be a huge issue. So we're still a young company, but from day one, I remember the early days when I joined the company, this was something that was coming up a lot. But yeah, that's who we are.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that background. Recently, you said that Hygraph went through this rigorous process as part of our commitment to maintaining the highest levels of data security and protection for our users. So can you talk a little bit about what sparked the need for Hygraph to pursue a certification?
This is probably also the reason why I exactly am in the call today as leading the sales team of Hygraph. It was an initial push by our market, by our customers or to-be customers. So pretty much every mid-sized to large company would just require you to fill out one of those amazing forms with 100+ security or compliance questions. And one of the important ones is like, are you ISO certified, or are you SOC 2 compliant? So this was a big reason for us to push for this. And yes, the push came from the sales team in the end. We were lucky enough to be supported even before we got audited, certified by a strong engineering team who did their job right. So this would be a piece of advice to everyone: before you get certified, make sure that you've hired good engineers, but then also do this one step. So yeah, that was basically the push, being a bit more competitive in the market and just being able to close these upmarket customers who really need that. In the end, it's partially also about time saving. So we've been SOC 2 compliant, officially type 2 for a couple of weeks now, and filling out the forms that you'd receive from customers before you sign them officially, slightly easier. You go there and just say, yes, we've got that, we do that. It has brought a lot of structure. So this was in the end a reason for us to push forward. And not to forget, exactly with the growth of the company, you just realize that in a way you are a target. Luckily, we've never had any incident or serious incident, but you never know. Look at the total market, that could be an issue. So this is something that we simply had to look into exactly from the growth point of view. Hey, the next stage is going to be even more serious. So let's take some precautions. So this is why we looked also at the proper experts who help us get to that level of compliance. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it wouldn't be any true webinar without some interruptions. So pardon my random phone call. So as with any large project, it's hard to not get into it, or it's hard to not go into it without expectations. So Alex, can you walk us through what your compliance journey and audit experience was like? And then also, Ashley and Dan, can you discuss what the onboarding and readiness process look like to set those expectations?
So the journey starts before you do any official research. For us, it was, I think, sometime last summer when we had yet again a discussion. Shall we finally get the ISO certification or the SOC 2 type of compliance? And in the discussion at some point, we just again brought up that argument. Well, it's too expensive. The company needs to focus on product features, growth. So is this really that relevant? But we did make the argument it is relevant exactly for growth and stability in the future. Somebody, I believe it was our CTO, came up exactly with a compliance automation tool. He's like, hey, with these guys, we might actually be able to save money and get this done faster. So we really had this idea of it's going to take a lot of time. So this was some sort of a light, hey, this is direction, maybe this is the way to go. So we started a couple of months later with the research of the market, basically looking first for a compliance automation tool. And we chose Drata in end of last year, sometimes just before Christmas. And then the readiness process after we got a recommendation to BARR commenced like 2 months later or less than 2 months later. So yeah, just 2 months afterwards, we got the type 1, SOC 2 type 1 compliance ready. The report arrived, thanks again to the auditors, to Daniel among others, shout out to him for getting it just before my birthday. We're talking a little about this with him. And yeah, the type 2 arrived a couple of weeks ago. So that's it in a nutshell. Of course, a lot of work in the meantime, but in the end, I think about 6-7 months of the entire process, from picking Drata to getting the type 2, SOC 2 type 2, it's pretty good time. I mean, definitely faster than we thought.
Awesome. I can jump in on the Drata side of things. You know, I am blessed to have an amazing team of customer success managers on my side, and Alex and his team got to work with Ali from my team, who's wonderful. But how the process really works on our side of things is we want our customers to really feel supported in every single way. And so on the first call, our kickoff call is how we describe it. we really talk through with them, what are their objectives, what are their goals, because every company has different objectives, different goals for using a software like ours. And so we understood very quickly, you have sales needs pushing for that SOC 2 report, and they wanted to move quickly. And so Ali took that information in, worked with them to develop a timeline to ensure we hit those goals. But one of the very first milestones with every single customer we work with, we say, hey, going through your SOC 2, it's really important to engage with an auditor from day one. So we put that as kind of first priority after onboarding with Drata, is making that auditor selection. And we have audit partners. We ask folks like Alex, what are you looking for in a partner? One thing that was unique for them is that they wanted somebody that could do both SOC 2 and ISO, because they are looking at ISO maybe down the road after SOC 2. So huge benefit that BARR is able to do both. Not every audit firm supports both frameworks. So from there, we introduced Alex's team to the BARR team, and they decided to move forward together. And then what's wonderful there is we can continue with our timeline on the Drata side, knowing what BARR expects and what they're looking for. But we always talk to the customer. We have compliance experts on our team, former auditors, but it's important for us to say they're not your auditor. They can give you best practices. We can give you best practices and support you. But now you have the BARR team there as an additional resource to ask questions to ensure you're meeting their standards. And so that's where we see it so important that we do put the auditors in the spotlight from day one. We're a resource, they're a resource all together. It's going to be a lot easier than if you were working independently. So hopefully that provides clarity on how we onboard and work with our customers in conjunction with the auditors.
Yeah, and as it relates to kind of onboarding new clients from our perspective, we like to take them through a readiness process. And it's a pretty high level couple meetings throughout a week where we kind of dig into some of their underlying control activities, identify what they do and don't have in place. And at the end of the week, we'll provide them with a kind of a list of observations or gaps, essentially, for them to kind of think about and formulate a timeline of implementing these items to bring them into the next step of, okay, we're kind of ready to go through the next step of SOC.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you all. So how did Hygraph ultimately decide to use a compliance automation platform, specifically Drata? And of the auditors that Drata partnered with, what made BARR stand out?
Yeah, good question. So the automation part, like why an automation platform? I believe every company, but especially a growth stage company, would look at its resources as efficiently as possible. And we just didn't want to right away like hire a CISO and put it on this particular task, however important it is. So we had this belief that it's possible to do it even without a dedicated person focusing on this, just with the engineering leadership and in our case my resources. And this could only be possible if we get some automation inside. I mean, in the end, being a very technology focused company, it's kind of makes sense that you look to automate stuff. So this is why we decided to go for an automation platform and not just the old school way. And why Drata in the first place? So I, together with the head of engineering, like look at a couple of systems and exactly being led by our goal to automate as much as possible. We first of all looked at how many of our tools that we are using, things like hosting, HR system, monitoring, reporting systems, communicate, all of these tools that you actually need to monitor one way or the other. We looked which of these systems, which of these automation platforms actually support them. And in our case, Drata was very high up. They pretty much covered everything. So this was a big plus for us. And to be honest, one thing that is, this is also true for BARR later when Drata suggested them among other auditors, the structure that we got in the beginning. So the structured process described really smoothly, really logically, made a lot of sense for us. So we kind of saw the clear path to getting to the SOC 2 compliance. Like, okay, that's what we need to do. Good, there is a bit of work, but we can get there. So that was important. And in the end, you don't want to cut corners as an engineering team. I don't know, you could potentially expect it from a sales team who needs to move fast and deliver their numbers. But the good thing is that this process is not run by sales, it's run by engineers. And they just wanted to do it right. And just made sense when we looked at the platform. It's like, okay, everything is going to be tracked. We don't need to do the extra work. So this was decisive in the end.
I love hearing about kind of the collaboration between engineering and sales at your company, because that is unique, but there's such a shared need here in this field. I think of it really benefits your sales team if you're able to show your engineering teams doing things right. So I love that side of your story. We don't get to talk with heads of sales that often, so I think that's pretty cool on this aspect. We do, I had mentioned on the Drata side, try to be very customer centric, and the feedback we've heard is just, you do need support throughout this process. How was, our team, the service model we provide at Drata, how did that support you in your process?
To be honest, we didn't expect to get that much support from Drata. Although it was kind of made clear in the initial pre-sales process, we saw, okay, there's a lot of structure, but we didn't expect to actually get a full-time dedicated customer success manager. Shout out to Ali, she was amazing, and this was awesome, because that's something you simply don't expect. I mean, you think you're gonna buy a SaaS tool and that's it, it's gonna run, and you hope that the user experience designers are good, so that you know what to do and you get the right tooltips and prompts and help in the tool. But that was pretty critical in the end. So you kind of see, okay, yes, it's a tool, it's software, but it's still in a way a service business model somewhere along the line. So that was super helpful, I must say, with things like, hey, is this a control that we need to comply with, or can we leave it? We don't want to invest the time. And then Ali, in our case, was super helpful, just checking in with your legal team and letting us know what's important, what not. So these sort of things were super important.
I love that. Yeah, in our model, we have customer success managers, and then I always say we have a compliance expert team and a solutions architect team and tech support team who support those CSMs to support you. So I love that you felt that, and that it's showing through on your side.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, can we talk a little bit about what some of the challenges you and the team had to overcome, both with the automation and the auditing processes?
So not having like a dedicated resource, but even if we had a dedicated security officer full-time doing that, just finding time in parallel to your normal job. So for me personally, it was the coordination work between different parties, the engineering leadership, then at some point the entire organization that needs to accept some newly created policies. But even just for the engineering leadership, it was a lot of work in addition to solving tickets or coaching engineers. So this was, I believe, the biggest one. Yes, you can't go without it. It's automation, but still, it's a serious audit that you go through. And then what other things? So I believe, of course, there were still some changes that we had to introduce here and there. For example, how servers exactly are monitored, things like this. We're lucky to have been in a rather good shape before the audit. But still, there will always be things that you need to fix, to adapt, to do in a more proper, compliant way. And that's yet another ticket for the engineering team to work on. I don't know, one surprise, one small thing that came up after the process started already, was that you might need to do a penetration test. Obviously, for software companies like ours, it's an important one. It's very nice to have, and in a way, you need to involve a third party to do that. So that's what we did to get as fast as possible to the end goal. I think somebody mentioned it also, just coordinating the entire team to go there and accept the policy. Some people had to install tools on their machines to monitor if they're using a password manager or if the hard drive is encrypted. So this dance with the organization, the couple of reminders you need to send so that everybody is compliant. That's also an additional effort that you need to do. But yeah, I think that's a good summary of what we had to go through and the more challenging parts.
Awesome. Dan, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think Alex's responses were pretty spot on. Obviously, there are going to be challenges to overcome during an audit, whether those be time, availability, or resource challenges, right? And I've kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier when I was kind of explaining what the readiness process is, but I guess one additional challenge Alex's team needed to overcome would be the initial observations or gaps that we had identified during the readiness process. I mean, many of those could kind of go hand in hand with what Alex mentioned about installing the Drata instance on workstations and servers and whatever it may be. But I would say that would probably be, just from our perspective, a challenge that Alex and his team went through as well.
Yeah, I'd say on the Drata side, and I guess just in life in general, the hardest part is managing the people. And so we need all of your personnel to go through an onboarding process. I mean, clearly, I already mentioned herding cats. That's all I think of when I think of the personnel process. So I'll repeat it again. But, you know, where it used to be, you're doing that in spreadsheets, having people send you emails with screenshots. Drata does ease that process, but it's still probably the most complicated is just getting everyone to do what they need to do. And so the system gives you the ability to send reminders, to send nudges. We have some new functionality coming up shortly. In the next couple of quarters, we're actually will be able to ping them on Slack automatically. So I think that'll make it even easier, since we all tend to live in those communication pieces. But I think that's the biggest hurdle for everyone. And so we actually have customers start with the personnel portion, because I figure start with the personnel portion, it can kind of last a little bit longer. In tandem, you can start working on your systems, the stuff where engineers can go into a room, make some changes and configuration fairly quickly. So I think that's always the biggest challenge for companies, especially as they get larger.
So if we could talk a little bit conversely now about what some positive surprises were with the experience.
Yeah, so good question. Thinking back about the last few months, I believe the biggest one for us was just seeing that we can go through the process much faster than we thought. Yes, there are costs in terms of our time and the entire process, of course, but it was less than we thought. And then a nice surprise from the vendors, from Drata, from BARR and others, was that the process was really very clearly managed. So just having this project management coming from, in a way, from both sides, of obviously mostly from BARR. But that was very important, exactly because you even if you think about it, if you head of engineering, a CTO, and you've been in multiple companies, still you don't know every single detail and every single document that you need to show somebody. So just having this expertise, this guidance, that was critical. And so that was wonderful to have. I mean, in the end, now, even if we still need to fill out as a sales team, still need to fill out some security forms. Mostly it's just a simple yes. Here's the document. Here's the report, and that's amazing. We just feel confident, and most of the time we don't need to bother anyone in engineering for helping us with the exact setup of our server infrastructure for something. So it's simply not there anymore. But yeah, it was a pleasant process in the end. So the big scary auditor was not what we expected it to be. It was just a couple of nice people that were helping us raise our game a bit. So that was a nice experience in the end.
I'm glad to hear that you didn't think me and Daniel were big and scary.
No, no.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's our goal, right? It's to become a partner and not so much a gotcha type auditor. So I'm glad you felt that.
No, you see me, but that's the thing. The engineering leadership, they were also like, "Hey, that was okay." That was not, and they've been in calls with CISOs from enterprise customers who could be mean. This was a nice experience for us, absolutely.
Good.
Awesome. Well, finally, to wrap things up before we get into Q&A, so start dropping those questions in. Is there anything, Alex, that you wish you knew before beginning Hygraph's compliance journey? And then also, Ashley and Dan, what's the most common thing that organizations wish they would have known before they started?
I think for me and for our team, the two big takeaways were start earlier, for the reason that it's not that tough after all. So you can get it as a growth stage company. You can get there sooner than you think, assuming you have good engineers. And the other one I would say is exactly start earlier, so that you're not under that much time pressure. Obviously, you always want to get it done faster, but at least giving a slightly further away deadline, it's just gonna be easier for the people, for the backend teams, the engineering leadership, to simply do their tasks and not be that much under time pressure. I think these are the big ones for us.
Yeah, exactly the same thing that I'm thinking. Really, we hear from small young startups sometimes like, oh, we don't need this yet, like we're gonna wait, and then they end up wishing that they would have started sooner when their company was younger and smaller, so that really security and compliance became part of how they designed their processes and procedures from day one. I hear all the time, like building a security first culture from day one. It's easier to start from the beginning rather than try to change behavior and habits. Again, it comes back to people, and changing behavior is one of the hardest things to do. So if you can build that culture that's built on compliance and have security in mind from the start. The other part of it is the screening of engineers and the hiring process for experience in a security and compliance first mindset. If you can find engineers that have gone through this process before, or that at least understand the fundamentals, I think that will ease the process as well. So I guess we're saying the same thing: start early, and it'll be easier long term.
Yeah, and I'd have to agree both with what Alex and Ashley have said on this one. Many organizations wait. They put it off. They kick it down the road, and audits in general are stressful. But the more you put it off, the more you kick it down the road, you kind of run out of time. You had a runway this big. Now it's kind of condensed into this because the client is now asking for a report and want it yesterday. So I completely agree with what you both said.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dan, Ashley, and Alex for this collaborative and forward-thinking discussion. I'd like to spend the last few minutes of this call going over any questions we've seen come in from the audience. So if anyone hasn't had a chance yet to submit a question, we've received a couple privately, and so I will go over those, but just wanted to remind everyone, you can drop it in the Q&A or the chat feature here. And while we're waiting on any of those to come in, I will get us kicked off with our first question. So what does the future of cybersecurity hold in relation to automation? And Ashley, I think I'm going to kick this one to you.
Awesome. Obviously, in my mind, I'm a bit biased, but the more automation we can continue to build, the more informed companies can be, and the quicker they can bring attention to gaps that might exist in their systems or configurations. I mean, silly as it sounds, like knowledge is power. We all know that. The more knowledge and awareness you have, the better you can protect your company and take the right steps. Every company is going to have risks, but it's how you mitigate those risks or prioritize those risks that really comes into play here. We'll also really probably continue to see more awareness and experience working with compliance automation tools from the auditor's perspective. You know, this is a newer field, and so not every auditor's had experience utilizing tools like this. And as they get more comfortable with them and give teams like Drata feedback, the more robust we can build them from the auditor side as well. So I see nothing but growth and excitement coming in this field, but also empowering customers to have the knowledge to continue to do the right thing or mitigate any risks that exist.
Awesome. Dan, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I started talking, I was muted. Yeah, I agree with everything that Ashley just mentioned. I mentioned it earlier, but compliance automation it's relatively new, and it's come a long way in 5 years. So just imagine what it looks like 5 or 10 years down the road, and most likely will lead to like fully automated test engagements or something along those lines. So I think the future is bright as it relates to automation.
Wonderful. So we do have another question about Alex. Why did you decide to go with a SOC 2 instead of an ISO certification?
A good one. This was a big discussion. I mean, we are originally Germany-based. Huge portion of our market is in the US, Australia, the UK. So we had this initial idea of, oh, SOC 2 is rather for the non-EU space, and then ISO is for the rest of the world. So we had this big discussion in the beginning. We realized at some point that's not necessarily the case. So it was a very pragmatic discussion and decision in the end. SOC 2 could be achieved. You can get the report faster after only a couple of months if you're as fast as we were in the end. And for ISO, it's a bit more complicated. So it's taking a longer time. That was our reasoning in the end. So if speed is important, I would definitely prioritize SOC 2. Most companies are fine with both in the end. We do intend at some point to actually probably later this year or next year, we'll see to actually also get the ISO one or to start the process for ISO, exactly because it takes a longer time. And even if you don't need it right away, you'll need it in 2 years or so. So yeah, better to plan.
Wonderful. Ashley or Dan, anything you guys want to add there?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to hear that, Alex. And yeah, you're right. The SOC is kind of more common in the US, and then ISO more commonly on the international aspect. But I mean, a big driver is what your clients want to see. Some prefer SOC and some prefer ISO, and some say either or works. So yeah, it was interesting to hear the discussions that you had internally around, okay, which route should we go and why? So I'm interested.
I will say, now that you've completed SOC 2 using Drata, what's going to be really helpful is you'll be able to see the cross mapping between SOC 2 and ISO and how the work you did for SOC 2 really overlaps. I know I am like a checklist type person. And so to be able to see, okay, I did this work over here and I don't have to redo it for ISO. It's just going to map across. Obviously would make my eyes light up. So I think that'll make the process easier for you when you're ready.
Yeah, well, it does look gamified in the end, so who doesn't love that?
All right, well, we've got several questions coming in, and I want to make sure and try and get them all answered. So while we're on the ISO SOC thought process, what is a realistic time frame to implement ISO 27001 standard, and how about SOC 2?
That's a great question.
Yeah, go ahead. You know better. I only know the answer to the second one.
Well, why don't we start with you, Alex? Redefine. I know you mentioned it earlier, but talk through the timeline from a SOC perspective, and then I can chip in from SOC and as well as the ISO side.
Sure. Sure. In our case, again, assuming that you're prepared enough, so your engineering team has been doing good work, and you have the right integrations, say for Drata. For us, it took a total of 7 months from the moment we started really actively working in Drata, even before BARR, or a couple of weeks before we started with BARR. So in the end, it was something like 7 months all in all. And I think since day one with BARR till we got the report, it was exactly 6 months. So that was realistic for us. And Dan, you can share more about ISO.
Yeah, so from a SOC perspective, and I'm going to speak specifically to Hygraph because we took them through first the readiness process. And that all in all, depending, again, we've talked about a lot today, but it comes down to the people and where you have them. Are they in the right places? Because Hygraph, for example, we're really able to put in place and implement the gaps that we identified fairly quickly. And that really helped with that 7 month turnaround. And within that 7 month turnaround, they not only got a type 2 report, but they got a type 1 report as well. So they went through the readiness, they went through a type 1 and they went through a type 2 in those 7 months. And from my experience, that's quick. From a readiness perspective, to get ready for a SOC, I would say on average, it probably takes anywhere between 2 to 4 months, depending on, the people and the resources that you have available from a SOC side. And I would probably say similar timelines, probably a little bit longer from the ISO side. And the aspects from ISO that take a little bit longer are the required documents within clauses 4 through 10. And those are some of the more important ISO related documents that support your underlying information security management system. So it just takes time to put those together. So if you take anything away from this, I would say 2 to 4 months from a SOC side, and then let's say 3 to 6 months from the ISO side. On average.
And you actually touched upon this a little bit, Dan, so I'm going to go ahead and combine this 2 questions into one. So how did Hygraph feel about going through a SOC 2 type 1 audit with Drata and BARR prior to going through the type 2, and did it make the process easier or more manageable?
For us, again, it was a very pragmatic thought. Let's get a first form of audit report out there as soon as possible. It could have growth-related, revenue-related repercussions with one or the other customer. We didn't have like a specific customer asking for this right now, give it right now, but it did have an effect in the end on them, a positive one, just having first report sooner. And then from the process perspective, for sure, that in the end, the type 2 was much easier because we did the work already a couple of months earlier, and then we had to improve a few things or deliver a few more things, but it was much easier in the end.
Yeah, and I guess just to add on to that, for those of you that maybe have a question around, okay, what's a type 1 versus a type 2? A type 1 is we're testing design and implementation, whereas a type 2, we're testing design, implementation, and operating effectiveness. And a big difference between the two is, okay, from a type 1 perspective, we're going to need an example of one. So that really allowed Hygraph to put appropriate documentation in place for an example control, or all of the controls, right? Before they're subject to sampling, and we select 15 and are like, okay, provide us evidence for these 15. So the type 1 is I don't know, hopefully that helped clarify kind of the difference between a type 1 and a type 2, and maybe the benefits between one or the other if you're out there kind of trying to decide between one or the other.
And Ashley, was there anything from the Drata perspective on the type 1 to type 2 that you'd like to add?
No, I mean, a lot of our customers feel like the going through type 1 first is a good way, if you've never gone through an audit before, to kind of dip your toe in before you fully dive in. And the platform supports you in preparing for both. And so oftentimes we will recommend that to folks that are maybe a little nervous about the process or never gone through it. And we've seen really great results where it makes type 2 much easier. It's not quite as much of a lift, because I have seen customers that have never done a SOC 2 go straight to type 2, and it can be a bit overwhelming, just because it is a whole new process. So then maintaining that for a long period of time is much harder than that one point in time. So we do recommend customers start there, but clearly it depends on their goals, and we can help them on either type.
Great. We've got time for 2 more questions. So how long would it take Drata to update the system when the new ISO 27001 standard is ready? And do you have any insight into when that will be released?
Yeah, great question. So obviously, our team is continuously updating our system in accordance to the standards. And so upon the release, the team's already preparing for how they'll move forward with making those updates. We also understand that most audit firms are giving folks a little bit of a buffer when those new standards come out. Obviously, because if you're in the middle of preparing for ISO right now, most firms aren't going to say, well, yesterday they released something new, you have to change. So our goal, I don't have an exact timeline. Our goal is to move as quickly as possible once that is available. And then obviously, as I said, your audit firm you're working with will provide that buffer of time, which I'm sure Dan can speak to a little bit better than I can myself. But in short, Drata will move as quickly as possible when we receive those updates so that you can, implement them on your side as well. But we will definitely send out communication so that you're in the know.
Wonderful. Okay, so when it comes to scoping, either in ISO or SOC, do you have tips on how you would ensure that scope creep doesn't happen and that we're focusing on the right areas? So for instance, we have 1,000 system assets in our register. Is the expectation that we're doing access reviews for all of them?
That's a really good question. Scope creep is definitely a thing that we want to keep top of mind throughout the audit. And I mean, really the best thing that we can do to ensure that everyone is on the same page is really just having that conversation pretty frequently. Obviously, the scope is production specific, so maybe all of those 1,000 instances aren't supporting production. But yeah, I would just suggest, I mean, having those conversations top of mind, and when things change, yeah, have those conversations. And if you're curious on how it might change the audit or the scope of the audit, let's have those conversations, because I mean, I know we're pretty heavy during a quarter, let's say, but we're still there to help assist and consult if you have questions throughout the rest of the year. As I mentioned earlier, we try to pride ourselves in being a partner and being a value-added relationship there. So if you have any scope related questions or anything like that, we're happy we're happy to jump on a quick call and talk through those issues.
And that's actually going to lead us into our very last question. I'm going to sneak it in. So what are some best practices for maintaining the security once you've gotten the certification, especially in regards to staying and prepared for future audits?
Yeah, this is a really good question. We've mentioned it kind of a number of times throughout this call, but I would say one of the most important things is really just ensuring you have the right people in the right seats. This will just help drive home what's important to the organization itself, and many times that is developing or maintaining a well-organized and mature information security program. So if you have the right people in the right seats, I would say that's probably the best advice. And I mean, with the automation compliance platforms out there, there's continuous monitoring in place to help assist with that as well. Ashley, Alex, anything else to add from your guys' perspective?
Well, I have two things. Sorry for jumping in, Ashley. One of the things is actually something for Drata. You just from time to time it's going to light up red. It's because some test is going to fail. So I will just use that. And I hope from time to time checking in is usually fine and enough. And then you know, okay, we need to fix this, we need to fix that. Somebody has not activated their Drata tool on their machines. You need to ask them. This is already, I think, would go a long way. And the other thing is not to forget that most of the certifications, most of the audits need to be done on an annual basis. So the year is going to be over in 6-7 months, then you need to go over parts of the process again. And you better not leave everything for later to fix. So that's everything I think is enough.
Yeah, definitely the tool is going to tell you, which is awesome. You know, it's not that you're going to have to be logging in every single day to make sure everything's okay. You can set control owners and get regular notifications. We just rolled out a Slack integration that can tell you each and every day where you stand. So I think that's huge. But as Alex mentioned, you also have to continue that this isn't a one-time thing. And I think that's kind of a misconception I do see with companies. They're like, I'm done, cool, and I can run off. And it's no, this is continuous for the life of your company so that you can maintain this. And so making the employee onboarding piece part of your HR checklist for people's first day, you know, making this part of your culture is what's going to continue your success. The worst thing that could happen is, you know, you get your SOC 2 once and then next year you're not prepared, so you don't go through it and all you have is kind of an outdated report. You want to maintain it. And so that's the goal of Drata, is to help you maintain it while you continue to build your product and really where the original idea came from.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. That's going to conclude our call for today. Thanks again to the panelists for sharing your years of experience, insight, and transparency. Please watch your inbox for an email with a recording of this event and a brief survey on your experience. And we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you guys.